Heads up, this episode includes a little bit of adult language, a lot of caffeine, and spoilers. Sometime in the mid-1980s, a documentarian named Mira Nair was in her birth country of India, specifically the megacity of Mumbai, sometimes called Bombay. And she's sitting in a cab, stopped at a traffic light, when she notices a kid coming towards her.
The first image that I saw was a young man who didn't have his legs. He had made a revolving board on rubber wheels that he would park himself on.
That, sadly, wasn't unusual. Mumbai's full of disadvantaged street kids fending for themselves by any means necessary. But what happened next wasn't so usual. The kid reached out, and suddenly...
there was this gnarled hand holding onto my taxi cab window in the middle of a traffic jam in Bombay. And the lights turned green and we started moving, and I was terrified for this child who was holding on, but with such glee that he knew exactly how to let go and then how to pirouette on his makeshift platform. That idea of finding some kind of flamboyance and a performative glee with having absolutely literally nothing, no legs, no nothing, was something I'll never forget. And that made me start thinking.
Yeah, a few years later, Mira Nair made her breakthrough fiction feature about a resilient Mumbai street kid. But instead of heavy traffic, she had her hero navigate another potentially treacherous side of the city, the world of tea delivery. I'm Rico Galliano. Welcome back to the MUBI Podcast. MUBI's the global film company that champions great cinema. On this show, we tell you the stories behind great cinema. Today, we finish up Season 10. We've been calling it a feast for the eyes. Just in time for your holiday dinners, we've been digging into how and why so many filmmakers put food at the center of their movies. And today, it's kind of a double feature. I talked to two US-based Indian directors who, years apart, made very different films, both set in Mumbai's notorious food delivery systems.
Everything is hand-delivered in India. We had Instacart way before you guys thought of it.
You already met the legendary Mira Nair, maker of essential movies like Mississippi Masala, starring a young Denzel Washington. Later, you'll hear us talk about that and about her amazing debut feature, SALAAM BOMBAY, a street-level view of Mumbai through the eyes of a tea boy. Plus, a little bit about the dining habits of her son, New York's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. But first up, we're going to hear from the maker of a beloved romance inspired by a beloved Mumbai lunch tradition.
It's just kind of this perfect system that's existed for over 100 years. It survived everything.
Ritesh Batra tells me about his 2013 hit The Lunchbox and about Mumbai's crack lunchbox delivery army known as dabbawallas. The Lunchbox was such a smash, it's now in rehearsals as a stage musical, by the way. I spoke to Retesh via video chat, and it was clear right away he's as into food off-screen as on. First of all, I love that you're actually eating and having a coffee while I'm talking to you. It's like perfect. What do you have? What's the snack?
I'm having a brownie, but I'm always eating something. It seems to me like I'm always snacking.
Really?
Gets me through my day.
Anything particular about the brownie?
Nothing. It's nothing exciting. It's just available in this kitchen.
Sometimes you just got to eat to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to the beginning of this project. Tell me about the moment that you thought about dabbawallas for a movie.
I left India when I was 18, back in 98. And then, of course, I have family there, so I keep going back regularly. And, of course, I grew up watching the dabbawallas. But I feel like when you leave and you come back, you see things in the way that you didn't see them before, So then I really noticed them. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. It's an interesting part of this city that I just took for granted. And then I just started doing rounds with them. My original intention was to just follow them around and see if I should make a documentary about them.
For those who, like many of our listeners, I think, are not based in India, how did this service, where did this come from? Why is it such a thing? And it's particular to Mumbai, right?
Yeah. Bombay, it's a long city like Manhattan, And like Manhattan, all the offices are concentrated downtown. The residences are up north. So it's a system that evolved organically for the needs of the city. And then, when Bombay was formed, people from all over India came there. Everybody has their own food. Everybody wants to eat their own food. Back in the day, there was not like different kinds of restaurants. So people preferred, home food. And then the thing with Indian food is it's not a sandwich, It needs to be eaten fresh, It's not something you can pack in a plastic foil and, send it along.
Yeah. A lot of sauces.
Yeah. So the men would leave for work, and then the women would cook the lunch, put it in a lunchbox. The lunchbox delivery guy collects it and delivers it fresh to the man's desk, and then delivers it back. So when I was following the lunchbox delivery guys, I started hearing these snippets of stories, like how some guy bought movie tickets for a movie he wanted to see with his wife later. He sent back the movie tickets in the lunchbox, a nice surprise for her. Hey, this is what we're going to do in the evening. And then the letters and stuff. So I was like, well, what if a lunchbox connected to strangers,
Describe the system involved with getting all of these individual lunchboxes to, I'm guessing, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of individual desks.
I mean, the system is kind of like a black box. There's these codes on lunchboxes that only the lunchbox delivery guys know what they mean. And we filmed it for the movie in all its glory and all its steps.
Yeah, in an opening sequence of the lunchbox, we see the lonely heroine, Ila, painstakingly boxing up a lunch for her husband, who she can tell is falling out of love with her. The lunchbox gets picked up by a dabbawalla on a bike. And then we're off on a tour through Mumbai as the lunchbox gets tagged, packaged up with other lunchboxes, then hustled by other dabbawallas onto trains, through rainy streets, and finally distributed by a final dabbawalla to the office desk of the wrong guy. A lonely widower on the verge of retirement, played by the late great Irfan Khan, who, unlike Ila's husband, finds the food she's cooked amazing.
And they start exchanging notes in the lunchbox, and then a love story blooms and transforms both their lives. We try to show that this thing never goes wrong, yet cosmically, miraculously, it goes wrong with this one delivery. But yeah, I think describing the system is almost like counterintuitive to talking about it, It's just kind of this perfect system that's existed for over 100 years. It survived everything, it survived the liberalization of the economy, people having choices. It still keeps going.
So why not do it as a doc, as originally planned?
I've started many docs and abandoned them. It's just not my jam, it's just not my thing. Though I love documentaries, and like the doc All the Beauty and the Bloodshed I saw a couple of years ago. It's just poetry.
What's that about?
It's about the opioid crisis.
Oh, wow.
But I just kind of thrive in this art form of narrative. I just like to make shit up, I guess, But it was just a great gift, to get into it, thinking it was going to be a doc, to learn it intimately, and then to weave a fictional story out of it.
Well, let's talk about that story because, interestingly, the couple are pretty much never in the same room together.
Yeah, in the movie, they don't ever set eyes on each other. The two lead characters, They never see each other, except for once from a distance at a restaurant where they're supposed to meet.
What was the point where you decided these guys are never going to meet? Because that's not the easiest story problem to solve at that point. A love story without people ever hanging out together.
I didn't ever think of it as a story problem. I just thought of it as that's what it is, Kind of them seeing each other would ruin the magic of the thing. There's also a character in the movie called Auntie who lives above the protagonist, Ila, in the apartment above her, and we never see her. We see a basket that basically represents that character that comes up and down, the windows. But I don't know, I was talking to my little girl about this the other day, because she was talking to me about whether we'll see her in the stage musical. And I was just telling her that, storytelling is as much as about what you show as it is about what you don't show. The things you decide not to show are just as important.
It's true. I mean, in a way, though, it also is saying something about the modern world, that it's so hard for people to actually communicate face to face anymore. I mean, this movie was made a while ago, but in a way, it's sort of envisioning the world we're in now where everything is mediated. We're divorced from each other somehow and trying to come together.
Yeah, I think there's an old worldliness to these characters, and they communicate through letters. At the time we made it, of course, there was phones and email and, Facebook and stuff. But they never deviate from sort of the old worldliness of letters.
Old world, yeah.
Yeah, and when you watch the movie, when you experience the characters, you don't question it because they just seem like old souls, They talk about old things. They talk about how things used to be in simpler times.
Is this like wish fulfillment for you in a way? It's like also dabbawallas. This is something that's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
Was it kind of like you were longing for a quiet... It's also a very quiet film. Was that going on for you, longing for a simpler time?
For me personally, and it doesn't matter so much because now it's a movie and people watch it and they take from it what they will, right? But when I made it, it was a very nostalgic thing for me because I'd been away from India now when I made it for about 12 to 14 years. And now I've been away for even longer, trending on 25, right? But at the time, I was very nostalgic about Bombay and about India and stuff. So for me, the whole movie came from a place of nostalgia.
It's a nostalgia that's reflected too in the food the characters eat, the way they eat it, and how and where it's prepared. So far this season, just about all the movies we've talked about are about high-end dining, professional chefs who take even classic dishes and elevate them to perfection. Whereas Ila, and really every cook in the film, are just trying to make simple, everyday things to please the people they love.
We put a lot of thought into the whole trajectory of the dishes she would cook for him. And at first she makes her husband's favorite things, and then she starts making his favorite things, and then she shares things with him. Like she finds a recipe for a spring apple sabzi, a vegetable dish with spring apples in her grandma's recipe book. So the movie is really about two people showing themselves to each other. And then we definitely use food as a device to do that.
But by the way, why spring apples as the truly nostalgic dish that she gets from her mother?
It's also, again, it's a very old world thing. Like that's something your grandma would make for you. Like a pozole in Mexico is something that is comforting and your grandma would make that for you. In every culture, there is something that only grandmas would cook, right?
Another food thing, there's this moment where Irfan Khan's character, his co-worker, is chopping vegetables on the train home from work. Which is, I love the concept, even though it doesn't seem particularly sanitary to me. Where did that concept come from? He's such a lovable character, but where'd you get that idea?
But, I used to take the train to go to college when I was growing up. In Bombay at the time, we had college after 10th grade. So 11th and 12th, I used to commute in the train. And oftentimes in the evening, on the ride back, I used to see mostly women just chopping vegetables.
Seriously?
In the train. Because, these commutes are long, 1 hour, 2 hours, and then they could just get home and cook,
I mean, it's a great idea. I'm just trying to imagine like a train full of people chopping onions. Like that could be a real problem.
I saw it. Oftentimes I saw people chopping vegetables in the train. But I just had fun with this because this character, Sheikh's character, does it, and he does it from a place of love for his wife. He gets home before her. And he just wants to have the meal prepared for when she gets home.
It's interesting that you say that because you're right. It's like every character is using food as a love language, kind of. It's a method of communication.
Yeah, you could say that.
Is that conscious?
Writing is never so conscious. But, at the end of it, after you're done and you look back at it, absolutely, yeah.
Let me ask you something we've been asking a lot of guests this season. How do you make food on film appetizing? Like for you, what is the process? What are the secrets?
Actually, shooting movies, a good part of shooting movies is pretty tedious.
Yep.
Shooting food is just tedious, Shooting process is just tedious, I remember telling Irfan that because we shot with him first for like the first 15, 20 days of the shoot. And a lot of his scenes were him alone by himself in the apartment. And that's very difficult for an actor. It's very tedious. And I remember telling him that, you're getting off easy. Like now we have to go and shoot all this food. So the making of it,
By the way, was it, I mean, obviously it was actual food that he was eating, but I mean, I know that something that actors complain about is having to eat something over and over and over again for take after take. Was there anything done to mitigate that process for him?
He was, sadly, he left us a couple of years ago.
Yeah, died in 2020.
Yeah, but he was a literal genius in terms of, how he interacted with the camera. For I would say 90% of the time in that movie, he's eating pomegranates.
What?
And you can't tell. He's a magician. He would bite something off, and it is on camera. It's there, but you can't tell the sleight of hand of that man and how he knows how to work with the camera. I mean, it was something to behold.
Why pomegranates?
Because they're healthy, and he doesn't have to eat this stuff over and over. I've shot actors eating a lot, over the course of my career, but never have I ever seen somebody being able to pull off pomegranates. And they're eating something entirely different,
I can actually, as I think about it, it's also because there's texture to it. You can kind of gnaw on it, but you're actually not ingesting all that much. It's mostly seed.
Yeah.
It has to be something that if you eat a whole bunch of it, you're not going to be grossed out and want to throw up at the end of the day.
Yeah, and he's a thoughtful person. He's a very thoughtful person.
That is genius. What did you eat on set? Was it as good as the food being cooked?
No, pretty close. The best part about shooting in India is that the food is amazing.
Yeah.
The on-set food is amazing. So when I'm not shooting in India, I really miss that. And there's always great chai on set, and I'm pretty addicted to caffeine and chai. So it's always I feel like when I'm shooting in India, I just have to extend my hand out and somebody will hand me a chai. So
just wherever you are.
I really miss shooting in India, honestly, for that reason.
I'll also say I've been to India and I've been to Mumbai, and there is a cinematic quality, or at least a visual quality to the way food is presented there that is like nothing I've ever seen. I remember going to a place just kind of a pretty standard gritty section of town. I'm walking down the street one night and there just happened to be a street market there, and it was just the vegetable vendors were laying out the food. It was like a geometric mandala of perfectly arranged, multicolored vegetables that just looked more enticing than any vegetables I've ever seen. I live in California, where there's a lot of really good vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big part of the culture and the being, I mean, the hospitality is entirely based on feeding people. I feel like Indian people are always, you get them together and they're talking about the next meal. Everybody is like, what are you having for lunch today? What are we having for dinner?
Half of the conversation over a meal is about another meal.
Yeah, it's always about the next meal, though.
I mean, it's nice. I have this theory that all human beings need is something to look forward to. And it's kind of that's a great way. Every few hours, you got something to look forward to. It gets you through a tough day in a tough city.
Yeah.
Tell me about the reception of this. First of all, this is in a lot of ways, this is not an epic film. It's a very small scale film. What were your expectations as far as its success?
I mean, none to not much, I guess. I just wanted to get it done, honestly. I remember the cut not working, and we needed to turn something into Cannes in a month. And it was just not working. And I sat down over Christmas that year and I wrote that last voiceover. And that made the movie work. We went back and we changed a bunch of things to earn that voiceover. That unlocked something for me. So my whole attention was on that. But what's been surprising to me in a way is that how the movie lives on after all these years, Now we're doing this stage musical, right? And then there's all these actors who were kids when the movie came out. But they're it's a big part of their childhood, it's their parents' favorite movie. And they wanted to be part of this musical because, it's somebody's dad's favorite movie. Or I met a couple the other day who said it was their first date,
When was your first inkling that this thing was going to do better than you maybe allowed yourself to believe?
Well, we went to Cannes that year and we got a bunch of big standing ovations. And then there's this award that's really charming there. It's the Rail Workers of France. They vote on the best movie. That to me was a really nice award to get because it's a movie about nostalgia and old souls, and then all the railway workers in France thinking that it's the best movie that year. It just felt so fitting.
The railway workers give out an award?
Yeah, they have this, it's called the Rail d'Or. They award it in Cannes every year. I feel like that's the best prize to get in Cannes,
It's so cool.
You can win the Palme d'Or, you can win the Camera d'Or, you can win any award in Cannes, Best Director, whatever. I feel like winning the Rail d'Or is the real deal. It gave me real joy.
Ritesh Batra, the stage musical of The Lunchbox, opens at Berkeley Rep in Northern California on May 27th, 2026. Coming up, we talk to Mira Nair about a movie that probably isn't musical material, but it's got just as much to chew on. A look back at SALAAM Bombay. That's in just a minute. Stay with us. All right, everybody. MUBI is the global film company that champions great cinema, bringing it to you wherever you are in as many ways as we possibly can. We stream movies, we produce them, we release them in theaters. Movies from any country, from legendary auteurs or brilliant first-timers. We've always got something new for you to discover. And I want to tell you about a couple of things I think you will definitely want to discover after hearing this episode. First of all, a movie that many of the indie film lovers among you are probably already planning to see, the new one from Jim Jarmusch, one of the godfathers of American independent cinema. The movie is called Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, and it is comedy drama in 3 segments, each one about a different estranged relationship happening in a different country. But guess what? The middle segment, set in the UK, revolves around 2 sisters sitting down for a fraught afternoon with their mom over, yes, a genteel afternoon tea. In fact, coffee and tea are a through line in all these segments. Also, those sisters are played by Cate Blanchett and Vicky Krieps. The mom is played by Charlotte Rampling. The film won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. I mean, I think that's probably all you need to hear to go see it. Father, Mother, Sister, Brother hits U.S. theaters on December 24th. Also, I want to tell you that the movie we just talked about, The Lunchbox, that's now streaming on MUBI in the UK, Ireland, Australia, and Latin America. So if you live in those places, subscribe to MUBI and MUBI.com, make dinner for the person you love, and have yourselves a great date night. We've got all the links and info you need about all of this stuff in the show notes of this episode. Speaking of which, let's go back to finish up this episode and this season. So, like Ritesh Batra, when I first started my video chat with Mira Nair, she was in the middle of a caffeine fix, pouring herself a cup of chai. Something she once wrote a whole essay about for the New York Times Magazine.
Yeah, I can't live without chai.
Yeah, I can tell.
That's how this article begins. I cannot think without chai, is the first line.
And like The Lunchbox, her feature debut featured a lot of chai. But that is where the similarities end. SALAAM BOMBAY is the story of a 10-year-old named Krishna. His family has kicked him out of the house for accidentally destroying his brother's scooter. So at the beginning of the movie, he goes to a train station and asks for a ticket from the countryside to, quote, any big city. The station guy hands him back a ticket to Bombay. Come back a movie star, he says. Krishna's plan is a little humbler than that. He's determined to earn 500 rupees, about 40 US bucks, which he's sure will buy his way back into his family's affections. And to do it, he takes the one job a homeless kid from the sticks can land.
Chai pao, which means tea boy.
Hey, chai pao! Chai!
And through delivering tea through brothels and through train stations and through people's homes, he gets embroiled with different characters in the streets and in the brothels of Bombay.
Krishna's adventures take him to some pretty dark places physically and psychologically, and every moment feels painfully real, which makes sense given the way Nair cast it and shot it.
I come from the world of cinema verite, which is the cinema of truth. I began really as a person viewing real life, making documentaries on the streets with people in the struggles of our lives, especially in India. Anyway, that was my first fiction film, SALAAM Bombay. But because I came from cinema verite, I worked with an amalgam of real street kids with some unknown but trained actors, but in the streets and in the brothels and in the graveyards of the city of Bombay in 1987-88.
Now, it's interesting. I've heard you describe yourself as making movies, quote, across oceans. Like a lot of them take place in multiple countries or they're about immigrants. Your first documentary out of film school was about an Indian immigrant to America. The 2 movies you made after this were about immigrants. Why make your first feature very grounded, all in one city? It's specifically not across oceans.
Well, it's because my roots are strong that I can fly. I am born and raised in India. I happened to come to America on a scholarship when I was 18 years old. But my gaze and my politics has always been to make my art about what gets under my skin and doesn't let me go. So the resilience of our street children, of whom there are thousands, really inspired me. I mean, I'm always attracted, to those who are considered marginal, because I think in them I get inspired.
Your mom was a social worker. I'm imagining this came in some part from her.
Yes, she is a social worker still. She used to say, no words, action. And it's funny that she said that, because action is, of course, what starts every shot of a filmmaker's life, action. But it really was about that. She was the wife of my father, who is like a Indian civil servant. And, she was supposed to wear beautiful saris and play mahjong, But my mom, in addition to wearing beautiful saris and playing mahjong, was always organizing, always wrapping up care packages for the soldiers on the borderlines. She's a major influence, on me and also on our son.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
You cast from the streets, as you mentioned before. Tell me about that process. How do you pick from? Obviously, there's millions of kids in Bombay that are in this predicament.
India, we are riddled with class. We are riddled with coded behavior. We live cheek by jowl between those who have and those who have nothing. And I did not, in SALAAM Bombay, I wanted to only work with real street children, because in their hands, in their eyes, in everything they have, they are the truth of what it is like to be part of this poverty. So I had no interest in looking for child actors. We rented a church in the basement of the church in Grant Road, which is central Bombay. Went out on the streets with a little piece of paper that said the address of our workshop. Those days, as rag pickers, they would make 25 rupees a day, and we offered 50 rupees a day.
What were they doing as rag pickers? They were being paid for?
They would go through what people here do with recycling things, go through trash and find out what's recyclable, and then sell the recyclable things like tins and cans and bottles. 129 street kids showed up, and very quickly I whittled them down to 29. And for 6 weeks, we took our 29 kids and we put them through a 9 to 5 pacing, which started with yoga and dance and then debate. And I also showed them many films, because the diet of entertainment in India is movies. The minute they make 5 rupees, they'd go to a movie, But that kind of Bollywood song, dance, fantastical extravaganza was the last thing I wanted to make. So acting, the word acting became a bad word in our workshop. If the kids would swagger along and sound like Amitabh Bachchan, the other kids would say, "Arey yaar, tu acting kar raha hai," which is, you fool, you're acting here. You're not yourself, Wow. So then I brought the camera in and then mixed them with professional actors. Like the pimp was played by Nana Patekar, now a great star. It was his first film then. In that process, I chose my protagonist.
The kid, unbelievable performance. Where did he come from? What was his background?
He comes from Bangalore, from South India, escaped alcoholic parents, and he was just doing exactly what you see in the film, sometime a rag picker, sometimes a waiter in weddings, that type of itinerant life.
What did you see in him?
Oh my gosh. He firstly, he was tough, really toughened by the street. He was both a child and a loner. He had depths of mystery, and that's something I'm always looking for in an actor. That was my first film, so I didn't even know how to identify it at the time, except that when I would work with him, Shafiq Syed is his name, he would do what I asked, but there was a greater reservoir within him that I was deeply affected by. And then as we proceeded, he slowly became more and more playful. But this reservoir was always within him. I've made movies now for 40 years. I've worked with so many kinds of actors and non-actors and real people. But this element of mystery, this element of enigma that you don't fully know what they, are feeling is a goldmine, for an actor and for a director.
That's what he and Denzel Washington, for instance, have in common in your films.
Yes, so many.
When did the choice come to make your lead character a chai pao?
Very early on, because a chai pao, a tea boy, is somebody who will take us through the different layers of life everywhere of Bombay. The chai pao traverses everything.
I see.
And frankly, that was my first inspiration. The film before Salaam Bombay was called India Cabaret, where I lived with 3 or 4 women who were strippers and dancers in a nightclub. And we would return home like 2 in the morning after they would have finished their shifts. And when they would wake up in the morning at 12, a chai pao would be there to give them hot tea. Mm-hmm. and they would very sweetly and intimately tell this tea boy, dance for us, like the men would have said to them the night before in the club.
Yeah, and there's a scene in Salaam Bombay where something like that happens.
बैठ कुर्सी पे.
Krishna, I think, brings tea to this prostitute and her daughter. It's during a rainstorm, and the woman dries him off.
ये माँ, ये मेरा गाना है.
And then they all end up dancing together.
Yeah. And then they would say, sing for us, like the men would command the women to do the night before.
Wow.
And then the tea boy would tunelessly sing the one line he knew from the Bollywood disco songs and serve them tea. A tea boy goes through several worlds in the course of a day.
I can imagine why tea is so important in India. The country produces, I think, the second most amount of it of any country. And on top of it, it was a colony of the Brits who love tea. What's the genesis, do you know, of this concept of hand delivering tea? We like coffee in the States, but you go get it or you brew it yourself.
Everything is hand delivered in India. We had Instacart way before you guys thought of it. It really is true. Tea making is something that we consider very seriously, but it also takes 15 to 20 minutes per making tea, because you boil it with ginger and cardamom and water and milk and then tea, and it has to brew properly, it has to cook, and then you sift it and sieve it. It takes 20 minutes. I make it every morning, so I know.
Yeah, this ain't just putting a bag in a cup.
No, that's what we call muzungu chai, which is the restless white folk do it like that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's not very artful the way we do it.
No, I've never had tea like that, but now, when I don't have time, I'm forced to. It's also, for us, it's really a point of camaraderie and a meeting place over chai, all over, even in smaller towns where your cigarettes are sold, you can order a chai, It's just our adda, as we call it. It's just a meeting point is around chai.
I do want to ask you, was this system, at the time, was the whole chai pao system kind of predicated on this sort of exploited labor, like these kids? Was there a quote-unquote legitimate chai pao network?
There is no union, like there are dabbawallas, where you can have it's a really amazing organization of those who take your lunches from home to the offices. But the chai pao, the tea boy, is the lowest rung. It's the entry-level job for a street kid,
I asked because there's also a scene where the kids they clean up some guy's chicken coops. And the implications that the food system is propped up on exploitation. It's our daily lives are undergirded by this exploitation.
Actually, if the kids did not have that employment of chicken cleaning and tea delivering, it would be a very miserable life for them. I didn't regard it fully as only exploitation. I agree it is much cheaper labor than they would have to pay elsewhere. But with the kids being there, it's a way to make something, because otherwise you have nothing.
Nair didn't leave her actors with nothing. With the proceeds from Salaam Bombay, she set up a trust for them, and nearly 40 years later, it still supports Indian street kids. In fact, her mom runs it. But for her next feature, Nair returned to telling stories about immigrants, specifically Indians who come to America from Uganda. It shared one thing with her debut, though. A lot of the action and metaphors revolved around food.
The idea of Mississippi Masala actually was brewing before Salaam Bombay, and I made Salaam Bombay, and when it became a hit and people asked me, what I would do next, and they flung me every child of every hue in every country as offers to make more Salaam Bombays. I turned them all down and went back to this original idea about Idi Amin's expulsion of the Asians in East Africa in 1972. The Asian community who had never gone to India had suddenly to leave a place that they had known as home, Uganda. But the interesting trick of history was that many of the Ugandan Asian exiles actually came to Mississippi, dirt-poor Mississippi, where they began to own motels because they were cheap and because they could employ their own families without necessarily knowing the language or whatever. And it was this extraordinary thing of hardly being able to find a white American-owned motel in Mississippi. And Mississippi, of course, is the birthplace of the civil rights movement. The African-American community who, like the Indians in Uganda, had never known the African continent as their home. And I kind of put these two things together to see what if the young Ugandan Asian girl, falls in love with an African-American man in Mississippi. What would happen then?
Now, the interesting thing to me is, germane to this conversation, is that the first scene set in America in the present day in this movie is in a grocery store. It's the first thing they're doing.
Piggly Wiggly, no doubt.
It is.
The name of the grocery store.
And it is a Piggly Wiggly. And actually, it reminded me, actually, I was watching it, of a movie that happened a few years earlier. There's a great scene in the movie Moscow on the Hudson where a Soviet immigrant to America is going through a grocery store and there's so many choices that he passes out. That's not what's happening here, but it makes sense that a grocery store, this place with all this different food, is a representation of America. Was that conscious?
Everything is conscious, my dear. Everything is deliberate. Because when I came to America, age 19, I had never been here before. And I quickly moved off campus, and I had to learn how to cook, and I had to learn how to shop. And I still distinctly remember my first visit to an American supermarket in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it was just bewildering, both in its primal colors, as well as the insane variety of things, as well as the fact that everything was packaged beyond. I'm still appalled by the level of trash I have to throw out on a daily basis after buying a bunch of tomatoes. Everything was so packaged, and I walked around looking for something that I could buy to cook or eat. And I finally ended up only finding this thing which, it was my last name, Nair is my last name, but I found this thing called Nair, and I said, okay, I'm exhausted with trying to find out what to buy, so let me just buy this Nair tube, whatever it is. And I bought it, and it was just hair removal cream. Nair, it meant no hair. I have no idea.
Oh, that's right. I remember it now.
I just did not know how to shop for quite a long time.
So your first experience that you're going to set these characters in is in a grocery store.
Well, yes, because so many reasons. It's really a portrait of Americana, Yep. And Piggly Wiggly, I just couldn't get over the name of the franchise. It was, and then just the contrast, what we as Indians purchase versus what other people do. I mean, Meena, Sarita Chowdhury's character, was buying 24 gallons of milk.
Yeah, for a wedding.
Yeah, for a wedding. They had to prepare so many sweets, so many things that needs milk.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. 25 gallons of milk, 10 buttermilk.
Holy cow. You up in a dairy?
And, things like that. He says, holy cow, says the cash register guy. Of course, not realizing that cows indeed are holy, where I come from. And so on and so forth. It was riddled with double meanings on several levels.
Yes, and the name Mississippi Masala is a blend of spices, and you right away see it in this grocery store. It's like these two Indian women who then are served by a white cashier, and then their food is bagged by a black guy. The grocery store is a masala.
Exactly. And I also, we grew up in India after independence from the British. We grew up on a diet of English literature and Russian literature. I really wanted to have our words in the title. Yeah. So Masala was perfect because it was really about this amalgam. And similarly with Salaam in SALAAM BOMBAY, the power of seeing one's own language on a marquee. There's no words for it, when you're growing up in another country.
Mississippi Masala, although you do explore all the fault lines between races, I do think that it's ultimately fairly optimistic that people can get along. And I think about it now, and a movie about immigrants set in the American South right now, I just would be a different movie today. And I wonder if you ever think about revisiting this.
I mean, if Mississippi Masala were to be made today, there would be a lot more, I think, schisms, real walls, more than they were then, between one community and another. Because it shows the racism in both communities, in all our communities, really, about each other. And that actually the life is, you're speaking about food. I mean, look at the commonality of food in Mississippi. When Denzel's family gets together, it's barbecue, it's corn, it's about gathering over food. And it's exactly the same in the Asian family in the motels when you gather for anything, for a wedding or a ritual or just for evening prayers or nothing. It's all about, the puris and the dals and the food you share. But ne'er the twain would ever meet, except to clean their carpets, And that was something that astonished me, our commonality and yet the distance between us.
Well, listen, maybe on a happier note, before I let you go, I should say congratulations on your son Zohran's election as mayor of New York.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure you're very proud.
Thank you. And I told you a couple of stories which sort of you could see the own echoes in him, which even surprised me. But the whole thing, the whole MAMDANI, I mean, it's about say your name, and say our names right. You know?
Oh my God. Yeah. Get it on the marquee right.
It's a long tradition that he comes from.
Absolutely.
With that.
By the way, I forgot I was going to ask you this. It's unbelievable because he has asked more than any politician I've ever heard of what he eats in New York City.
Yeah.
What did he eat at home? I don't think anybody's asked like what's his favorite dish. Like when I would come home to my mom, she'd be like, "What do you want me to cook you?" And it was always pot roast because I'm a white guy.
Actually, bagels and lox and cream cheese and all that is very much a Sunday breakfast, believe it or not. Wonderful grilled salmon with steamed vegetables and potatoes and dill and, so it's not always only Asian fare.
Yeah,
but at home, I essentially make, keema matar, which is like minced lamb with peas in a kind of stew. I make a lot of biryani. I make a very big rack of lamb, barbecued Indian style for Thanksgiving.
Do you have an egg dish, by the way? That we've been collecting egg dishes from filmmakers.
Yes, we eat burji, it's called, BHURJI. It's spiced eggs with onion, tomato, coriander leaf, and you whip the eggs with flatbread or with naan or with what from Gujarati bread we have called thepla, which is very thin, made with fenugreek. It's like a peasant breakfast that is the tastiest one on earth. With, of course, some mango pickles. Yeah.
What are we doing with shakshuka? This has got to be like the next brunch thing.
Well, shakshuka has borrowed on this idea.
Okay.
Ours is better.
I'm sure lovers of shakshuka will have something to say about that.
I know, I'm just having fun.
Mira Nair, she told me she is currently working on a greenlit feature, her first in several years. Watch this space for more news on that. But till then, that's a wrap on the MUBI Podcast for this season and this year. It has been an honor telling the stories of these tasty food films. If you haven't heard them all, go back a few episodes to hear my conversations with the likes of Brad Bird talking about his Pixar classic Ratatouille. Meanwhile, we are going to take a much-needed end-of-year vacation, but follow us so you don't miss what we have in store for 2026, including a career-spanning conversation with the great Wim Wenders. If you are a regular listener, you've heard him on the show before, and he's just the best. We talk about his love of movies, travel, and rock and roll. Follow us, you are going to love it. Meanwhile, let's roll credits. The MUBI Podcast is written, hosted, and edited by me, Rico Galliano. Kira McEniff produced this episode with help from assistant producer Kat Kowalczyk. Jackson Musker is our booking producer. Stephen Colon mastered it. Our original music was composed by Martin Ostwick. Special thanks this time to Dallas Thomas for recording Mira and Ritesh. Also, as always, to Karina Lesser, and thanks to Rob Reiner for the decades of joy, R.I.P. This show is executive produced by me, along with F.A. Checarel, Daniel Kasman, and Michael Taka. And finally, to watch the best in cinema, head to MUBI.com to start watching. Thanks for listening. Happy holidays. And I will have a latke, a tamale, a pile of sugar cookies, whatever other holiday stuff that's bad for you. Just pile it on. Ham. Go for it.